Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today's slightly different video from the car. I thought, why not mix it up a little bit? Just came out from doing a podcast, which I really enjoyed. Honestly, I should be doing way more podcasts and be on other people's podcasts. And I always enjoy, getting some challenging questions, and was actually more about my job rather than my investing side of things and the YouTube side of things. But definitely really, really interesting. Very much enjoyed it. And it got me thinking, because in the end, I asked the person interviewing me, said, why are you actually doing the podcast? Because to be fair, he's been doing an excellent job for a number of years now. But, honestly, the views are not that high, what I consider high, after so many years, just like some of my videos, sadly. But still, like I continue, he continues, and he's seen incremental growth over time. But still, one of the main reasons what he said, which really resonated with me, and that's something I wanted to convey to you today, is that it helps to build your network. Because think about it. If you're writing to some CEO and ask them for their thoughts or some, tutoring or some mentoring or anything to really link up, usually it just goes straight to the bin for them, right? They don't have time for that. They get millions of such emails. But on the other hand, if you ask them to come on your podcast, basically, it immediately opens up the doors, and they're much more likely for them to actually go there and participate, because that adds value to them as well. And he actually told me he interviewed people from the heads of Starbucks, Reebok, some of the biggest startups we have in Europe, which otherwise they would never have answered him. His following is still rather small, but if you have some, content library of podcasts you've done in the past, they see you're a professional, they're much more likely to do that. And once you have them in your network, they eventually will start, referring you to others. And having them in your network will allow others to also jump on board and join your network. So I think it's a multiplier effect. And that was really an eye-opening moment, and something for you to also think about, depending on whatever industry you're in. And it really doesn't matter. You can really become a thought leader in your industry. And most likely, there's still a lack of podcasts out there. It's one of the fastest growing medias out there. It's long form, so you really connect with your audience. Because in the world of short form, I think, there is a lack of engagement and really connection with your creators. So having that, I think you really build a much deeper, connection with that audience. And as I said, it builds your network. And the second point, interestingly enough, he said, half of the people that were on my podcast actually became my clients, because he also does leadership coaching, startup mentoring, etc. So the people he interviews later on come back to him and said, well, we really enjoyed the conversation with you. Maybe we want to come and do the same for our team and help them to level up, etc. So I think that's such a smart approach. And once again, something we can do for our own business and our own passion, whatever it is. If you're into F1, great, do a podcast about it, interview different people. Maybe one day you're going to be invited to go to an F1 race yourself. If it's about real estate, become the go-to real estate guy on podcasts. There's not many out there who do it consistently. A lot of them start 1, 2, 3 episodes and then they stop. But if you keep at it and keep going, over time, you will definitely start seeing some great results from it. So that's definitely something I can really recommend you to stick with it, stay consistent, and over time, you build up a wealth of network, a wealth of content. You become more credible, because the more content you have out there, the more people start recognizing you and following you. And it was interesting, actually, when he said, Guy, I Googled you. I only found 3 podcasts you've been on, because obviously you can just put somebody's name into the podcast player of your choice, and then you will see, how many podcasts they've been on. And the more you've been on, the more, again, it also builds credibility about you. So there's so many benefits to that. I still think it's such an underrated medium, and it's quite easy to record in a way, right? To record YouTube videos, you need the latest equipment and so on. Here, we did it literally over a Zoom call. Both used our webcams, the microphones from our computers, and it was really, really well. And afterwards, there are softwares where you can just upload the podcast. It cleans up the audio. It cuts out the silent parts, the ums, the ahs, makes it into a nice episode. You upload it, and boom, you're good to go. And you start building your library of content. And once again, that network, because that's ultimately your net worth, right? The more people you know and people who know you. Now you might say, Kai, if it's so great to have a podcast, why don't you have one yourself? And I totally get it, right? And I was actually thinking about it, but to be really fair, we all only have 24 hours in a day, and between working a full-time job and doing 3 YouTube videos for you guys a week, and now working on starting my new business, that really takes a lot of time. So layering a podcast on top right now, I just don't have the time for it. And I think you have to choose your battles carefully, right? You can only do so much, and I don't want to over leverage myself, because if I do something, I want to be consistent with it. And if I start a podcast, I would do at least 2-3 years to start seeing traction, because in the beginning it will be slow. So right now I can't do it. I thought about it many times, and should things change, and for example I leave my job and only have the business and YouTube, I might potentially really think about this, because I really think you can start such a deep connection with people that you can't through other means, and as I said, unlock so many more contacts and people. So yeah, right now I just can't do it. But if you're not doing YouTube or anything else or have spare time, I think definitely think about it, especially if you're willing to build your own personal brand, advance yourself in your career, in your industry, become a thought leader, or launch your own business. Because by being a podcaster, having the network and having the content out there, you really become the go-to person that people think of. I mean, I listen myself to so many different podcasts and I absolutely love it. And I have such a deep connection with them. So if ever they were to sell something or launch something, I'm much more likely to go with their solution or their product or service than somebody I just saw on TikTok or Instagram, because you have a much deeper connection listening to them all the time. So yeah, that's something I really, really love about podcasts, and I think it definitely has a long way to go, and it's something you can't control. You're not really dependent on an algorithm and so on. If people subscribe to your podcast, listen to it, they listen all the time. You're not dependent on one single platform. So that's another huge benefit. And also let me know what is your favorite podcast that you listen to. Happy to hear from you. Anyways, guys, as always, thanks a lot for watching. Stay awesome. Check out this video over here next. Stay healthy, get wealthy, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.